listen.
We're 31. We ready to go? We're going to have our audience online waiting for us, wondering where we are. I know
I bet they're all
packed in.
inside.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
We're live.
We're live? All right. Well, welcome everyone to our meeting for Monday, June 27th. I call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome Miss Dana Miller, sitting next to me to my left. Wonderful to have her this evening. I'll call in the treasurer for the roll call, please.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
Mrs. Shiver,
Here.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Here.
Dr. Urso,
Here.
and Miss Novak is absent this evening but excused.
All right. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second, please?
Second.
Awesome. Any questions, comments, concerns, compliments? Nothing? If there are none, to Mr. Bertram.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Shiver,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Dr. Urso.
Yes. Here's no public participation. That brings us right to the consent agenda and a motion for approval.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions or highlights? I know we like to pull some things from this. Any donations? Any clarification in regards to anything included within tonight's consent agenda? We'll pause a second, make sure.
I'd just like to mention that I do have the advances and transfers listed in the agenda this evening. I also have the final appropriations for FY22 and the temporary appropriations for fiscal year '23, and also the final amended certificate of resources that will be certified by the county later in July.
Perfect. I do notice one donation. I would like to thank High Concrete Group from Lancaster, PA, who donated $500 towards Midi Olympics. Thank you. If there is nothing else, then Mr. Bertram, I believe we're ready for a vote.
All right. Mrs. Shiver,
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Dr. Urso.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Brings us to Human Resources, where there are 3 items for consideration tonight, the first being Professional Development. Agenda B. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And if I am correct, my brother, my talented brother, is included within Agenda B. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. You get special treatment. If there are no questions, Mr. Bertram, we're ready for a vote.
Mrs. Mulligan,
Yes.
Dr. Urso,
Abstain?
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
and Mrs. Shiver.
Yes.
The second item is a memorandum of understanding. I'll allow, it's an OG piece here. And so is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
You know, it's like pulling teeth tonight to get these motions. You're making me work.
Yeah, that's for the early college academy.
Yeah.
We're familiar with that,
Mhm.
yes.
I believe this one's for Terry Vincent and OG.
Right.
Can we have just a brief overview on this MOU, please?
Yep. So this particular one is speaking to Terry Vincent. It's offering her to become our district-led trainer. Overall, she will be training for the next 2 years for she'll receive a stipend for doing that. She has actually used her own money to receive her certain level of credentialing already, and she's continued to stay in training to reach that highest level that's required as part of the new dyslexia law. So she'll serve as our in-house district trainer for the next 2 years as part of this memorandum. She'll pull teachers during the school year to train them as well as in the summer. So this summer that we're in right now, the week after school was out, we trained over 100 teachers using Orton Gillingham trainers because Terry wasn't certified yet. She's continued to reach that highest level, so she'll be able to serve as our in-house trainer now.
So will she also be around to help teachers with this in between the trainings too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
I've met Miss Vincent, very talented person. We're very fortunate to have her on our staff, and with the legislation through Columbus that requires OG training or dyslexia legislation. We have really something unique and special that I imagine many districts are envious of.
You're
And
right.
so-
She is top notch. Her knowledge is just unbelievable in the area of reading instruction. She's already jumping in, helping teachers who are working in some summer hours for students, helping them practice how to do the assessment, where to start with students in the program, and how to deliver it.
Well,
We're very
it's my
fortunate.
experience that Orton Gillingham is a lifesaver for a lot of kids.
Yes.
Certain people really blossom with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
Just to speak just briefly, my wife has had the training for her position and is very impressed.
It's
with-
intensive.
It is, but it's allowed her to do her job better and serve kids that for many years have gone unserved. And to have a person on staff that can do that training for our staff, comprehensive training for our staff, yeah, a no-brainer for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any questions in regards? If there are none, then Mr. Bertram, thank you for that, Ms. Miller.
You're welcome.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Shiver?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Next item is a read only. It's a job description for attendance officer. Do we need some background information regarding this? Any overview? Mr. Bertram, Ms.
We
Mulligan?
can speak to that.
Yep.
So for years, we've had attendance officers or truancy officers, some people call them, as part of our district staff. For the last several years, we've chosen instead to go through Butler County ESC as we've had retirements and turnover in staff. This is an opportunity for us to bring them back into the district as they always have been and to put them on a district salary scale. The ESC salary scale is much lower and really doesn't reflect what we're asking them to do, the intensity of what their responsibilities are. So we've had conversation about bringing them back in and putting them on a district salary schedule that would be comparable to what the previous position was when it was in-house.
Approximately how many district-wide would, at the high school and middle school, would they filter down to the sixth grade and elementary schools too?
We do. We cover kindergarten through high school. We have one person who oversees the majority of the elementaries. We have one person who oversees one of our more intensive elementaries in terms of attendance, as well as Highview in the middle school. And then our last person just focuses on high school.
So we have 3 total?
Mhm.
Okay. Any questions before moving on? All right. Looks like we're ready to move on to our main event this evening, our 5-year forecast from our treasurer, Mr. Bertram, whenever he is ready. It says it's an action item. Do we need to take a motion in a second on this and then
Yeah,
have
we
you
can go ahead and do
present?
that.
All right.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the 5-year forecast?
So moved?
In a second?
Are we going
We're
to
gonna
approve
vote.
it before we see it?
No. We're going to open up the dialogue.
Okay, I'll second.
All right. We do trust our treasurer.
I know, I know.
Maybe not that much.
I'm just
though, right?
contrary tonight.
All right. Sheriff, I've got a couple documents that I've shared with each of you. One is green and orange, and this is the high level of the forecast that I'll share with you tonight to talk about it a little bit. And then, of course, I've shared the actual forecast and the assumptions, 22 pages of assumptions that go along with the forecast. I will say forecast, along with all the other funding sources that we're receiving through the pandemic, has been quite the challenge because we've moved money in, we moved money out. We've had some reductions in staff and expenses that are part of this. It's made it quite complicated. And I will tell you, even though the forecast was due in May and submitted in May, that I'm curious to how it's going to pan out, because I'm going through approximately 9,123 lines of expenditures, and I see in areas that were really high that I didn't expect, other areas were a little low, and I'm just trying to match these numbers with the other grants that we have to see if we've moved money accordingly. So what I have today may shift by Friday. We hope to be closed by Friday for fiscal year end. But for the time being, this is the forecast. I don't see a drastic need to change it between now and November's, but November's could be significantly different as well, as we hope to hear more from the state and what they're going to do with their funding. So with this document, you see the orange and the green, little tiny numbers up here. I couldn't even see them. I even did a large one on 11 by 17. I gave to Kathy, still couldn't see them, so I hand wrote them in here to make it a little easier for all of us. So I know it's not my normal work. The orange is representing November's forecast, November of 2021. Green is representing May of 2022. And the front page is the revenue comparison between each of the 5 years in the forecast and the two separate forecasts. 2022, May, we're looking at $70,328,000 in revenue. When I changed it in May, we're looking at closer to $72,000 in revenue. I did take a quick look this afternoon. I'm at about $71,500,000, but we still have this week. More revenue could come in and still be posted for the year within the general fund. Next year, being an increase in the biennium, or being the second year of the biennium, we are expecting a $3 million increase in state funding per the school fair funding model. Years 24, 25 will be the next biennium. I'm still not real confident that we'll see fair funding for the second of 3 bienniums that we're hoping to fully fund it. So I have about a 2% increase in that budget coming from the state, and that also includes year 2026. I will say, even though the economy is a little bit wonky, if you will, we're not sure what direction it's going to go. Worried with the inflation costs. I have built in some higher than normal inflation costs into this forecast, and you will see that expenditures are coming in higher than they normally do because of that. And also, I'm not sure how that will affect state aid in the next biennium. Right now, Ohio's doing fantastic. Our economy's still rolling. We're still above estimates in the billions. It's looking very good that they could do another biennium if it doesn't turn south and job losses and everything else, such as a recession could occur that could prevent that or slow that down. But until I feel confident that we're going to get that second biennium with another $3.5 to $4 million increase in each of those 2 years, I prefer not to model it.
Just a quick question in regards to the 76 or the approximate amount. What's the proportionality between state aid and local dollars?
State aid is coming in right now at about $35 million.
Okay.
So less than half.
All right, and so local dollars.
It's going to start going up. Local dollars still pretty strong along with other revenues.
And so, like, looking at property values locally, is that factored in as you work through this?
It is.
Okay.
It is. In fact, in 25, you'll see a higher bump. You know, we bumped about $1.5 million. We should see an update in 2025 with property valuations. I haven't changed that yet. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, you know, with the economy and how it's going to affect all sectors of the economy. I do a lot of reading. I do hear a lot of people saying the real estate market's going to come get its turn, just like the stock market has. As a homeowner, I hope they're wrong. But what happens, happens, but we will factor in any changes that we feel could be affected by that. I do know new homing sales, or new building sales, new builds for homes have dropped by 14% year to date from what they were earlier, so housing market is being affected. The middle section there just shows you year over year in the comparison between November and May's forecast. There is a little fluctuation in 22 and 23. I didn't make many changes for 24, 25, 26, so you see that pretty stagnant. And then the cumulative effect is the third graph on the bottom of the page. We turn over to the expenditure comparisons. You can see 68 million was estimated in November. Still not real sure how fair funding was fully going to affect us. I did tweak that up in May by nearly $2 million to 70 million. This does have an effect over the overall forecast by increasing that number. A couple factors in there. One is purchase services are still coming in a little higher than anticipated. I already mentioned supplies and materials are coming in a lot higher than projected, but I think that's something I'm going to be able to flush out to the pandemic funds. And but consistently, we do see increases, supplies and materials and purchase services. I've increased all those by 5%. Generally, I increase by 2, maybe 3%. Purchase services, that's a scary one because we're paying for people where we don't control the increases. You know, maybe the ESCs or Sodexo or whatever companies we may be using. And of course, we know salaries have gone up dramatically just in the last year compared to what they had been in the prior couple decades. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that as well. Overall, we're looking at $4.25 million increases next year from 22 to 23. More than I'd like, but I think I have to be a realist and realize things do cost a lot more than they have in the past. I'd rather be too high than too low on this. I don't know that I'm too high at 5%, but I thought it was fair at this point to at least go with that. November, that may change. I still see inflation coming in at 8.5 or higher. We don't start downturning the inflation numbers, then they need to be tweaked up as well. We've got a strong cash balance. You know, as much as I hate to spend more money for the same amount of goods or less goods, we're in a good position to absorb it for now. So I'm happy to say that.
With like energy costs being so expensive, and I know we have prearranged deals with Peterman, and how does that work in regards to that? We're responsible for the fuel costs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I know diesel fuel is outrageously high. I drive by the highway and I see those numbers up on the board. And so how's that factored in?
Well, I can tell you just on our gas bill, our timing couldn't have been worse. We just finished a contract. Eric just negotiated another contract, 70% increase on what our gas prices are to heat our buildings. Not fuel for the buses, not fuel for our vehicles. So we see a large increase there. Electricity, I haven't seen it, running the numbers on that one. So a little blessing there, not yet anyways. Gasoline, yep, we're gonna run high again. Obviously, we're gonna run the same number of buses as we have in the past. We're gonna have to pay for that. And it is double from what it was a year ago currently. And yeah, how do I project that? That's a tough one. And those costs actually all fall into purchase services, except for the fuel. We do pay the fuel directly. We fill up our tanks out there. But as far as the costs for buses being more expensive when they're purchasing buses, is for the staff being more expensive. We haven't negotiated with Peterman yet that I'm aware of. Eric might have started that, I don't know. But last year, we agreed to a 3%. We thought that was fair under the conditions. So I don't know what they're going to ask for this year. That's a great question. That's something each year we negotiate with them.
Do we buy, like if we have our own gas pump there, do we buy fuel for, like, when do we purchase that? And are we purchasing it now?
Yeah.
Is it ongoing?
It only holds so much fuel, so we don't buy futures in fuel, we just buy it as needed.
Okay.
And they pump it when it's empty.
All right.
Yeah. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose with gas prices. So, you know, revenue's gonna be pretty consistent. I feel good about that. Expenditures, obviously, that's the unknown. You know, how's this economy gonna affect us in the future? We're gonna have to make any other adjustments along the way. We need what we need, of course, and we're using the ESSER dollars best we can to supplant the cost to the general fund. So again, little reprieve, but we're buying less than we had planned to, because we have budgeted for the ESSER dollars as well. Any other questions on expenditures? I know I'm going very high level.
Well, it looks like the expenditures exceed the income.
We will be doing that, yes.
That's pretty
Great
grim.
observation, Kathy.
That's pretty
Yeah.
grim.
We think next year will still be flush, where revenue will come in ahead of expenditures. But year 2024, 25, and 26, we're looking at
Yeah,
deficit spending.
yeah.
Yes, definitely. If you turn to page 3, you look at the projected general fund cash balances from 22 to 26. November, we're looking at $16.5 million. It's dropped $10.5 million because of the $2 million increases that we're looking at costs for the general fund, just in expenditures. Don't know it'll stay that way. I'd be pretty conservative. It's still good though, knowing we have a positive cash balance 10 years out. But if this is going to stay projected this way in 1 year, 2 years, we've got to talk about how we're going to alleviate this issue. It's not on my radar real high, and I know it's here. I know it's something we might need to talk about. But again, if state funding comes to fruition, it's going to take care of all that again. So we're hoping the economy will stay flush, at least in Ohio, and our fair funding. Because fair funding is going to add $3.5 million each year of each biennium that they keep doing it. So if it goes up another 3.5, it's going up $3.5 million this next year. Then it should go up another $3.5 million, then another $3.5 million. And I can't raise my bad arm any higher than this right now.
Well, now, wait, so is that factored into the,
No, I have not factored in beyond this biennium.
okay.
Just until I feel more confident that it will continue. There's a lot can happen. I mean, if the economy turns and it starts affecting cash balances at the state level, revenues start coming in lower than expectations, they may tweak the funding formula. They still may say, hey, we want to keep fair funding, but we're going to lower the percentages of this category or that category, and that $3.5 million could turn into $3, $2.5, $2 million. We don't know. So until I have a better feel for it, if I knew right now, yes, we want to continue fair funding, which the majority of legislators do, but the one that doesn't is the Senate President, Matt Huffman. And he's the one that wants to input his own caveat to school funding. I don't know what that means. So I'm a little reluctant to build this in. In November, if state funding still looks great, revenues are still exceeding expectations, or they haven't lowered the standard so much that it exceeds it, I'll probably bump that 2% up to a 4 or 5% until I have more information.
Just for a matter of context, if we would go back to 2017, 18, 5 years ago, and similar kind of presentation, is there a trend to where, looking out, that we have to, because it's hard to really, because we didn't know 5 years ago about the fair school funding. My question is that where we are mindful, this isn't new. This is something that across time we've seen our deficit spending,
Yes.
those kinds of things.
Yes, definitely not new. It can be very cyclical in a forecast, just because obviously the further out you go in the forecast, the less information you have to work off of. And most treasurers are going to be conservative in years 4 and 5, more so than they are in years 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, we just in our time together, all of you have been on the board long enough, we've been able to work through these issues. But it's not just because I forecasted too conservatively, it's because we've made adjustments. We had a $2 million reduction, we have a $2.5 million reduction, so we're able to make the adjustments along the way. And again, something we may talk about in a year or two if everything comes to a slam with the economy and the recession. But for now, I still feel confident that things are going the right direction, and we have obtained a good enough cash balance to absorb some of the issues that we're dealing with today.
It's really about finding the sweet spot, because you don't want to take on more cash to where we could be expending it for our students. And so it's kind of finding the balance to where you're not going into some peril down the road where you're not going to be able to pay your bills.
That's right.
At the same time, you don't want to hound dollars when kids in our buildings need those dollars.
That's exactly right. And we still have some conversations we're going to have in less than 2 years, because we have the $2.5 million postponement of the budget reductions we made to help with the
Right,
forecast. We'll have to decide what we're going to do with those positions. And then we're also going to have to look at the ESSER positions that we've added. Which of those, if any, can we keep? Obviously, we'll use priority. And it is a discussion as a team that we've already started. You know, we know it's there, we know we've got to keep it on the radar. We're going to analyze, you know, all those positions and what they mean and prioritize them, if you will. So when we do come back and have those conversations, we'll have good information for you. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain everything, but my glass is half full.
Would you have any idea how typical this is among other school districts?
I will tell you, just from what I've seen out there, we're in a lot better financial position than a lot of other districts right now. A lot of them are really getting hurt with the economy. The fair funding didn't benefit them like it did us. That's where we have the advantage. The fair funding was a home run for us, while for others, it might have been a walk at best.
But everybody's facing lower increase in state funding than expenditures are going up, because everybody's faced with all those factors, energy and salaries and.
And a lot more pressure on wages, obviously,
Yeah.
because all our employees need help paying for their bills too. So you have to see a lot of pressures both directions. So it's not that we're bragging, just that we've been very frugal. We have been very observant of our cash balance, and I think our cash balance policy has been a home run for us. Let's take the baseball. So what I'd like to do is come back in August when we think we'll have all 5 board members, do a deep dive. I'll do a deep dive with some help from my intern back there, AC, and great opportunity, deep dive more into the numbers and take a look at how fair funding affected us, both in revenue and expenditures. Remember, we thought revenue would increase greatly, and we also knew that expenditures, I shouldn't say it would increase greatly. The loss in revenue would be $2 million greater than the loss in expenditure. So if we had $8 million in expenditure losses, we had $6 million in revenue increases. I'm trying to find that $2 million right now. That's where I'm off a little bit. Did we not get as much in expenditure losses as we thought we would, and a little less in revenue than we thought we would. So that's a deep dive I want to take. And then look into our purchase services or supplies, capital, and just take a hard look and see how we can define that, how we can better use our other resources as well. Other resources, PI, we have 2 PI funds, our 003 and our 034, and then we have our grant funds too that we can utilize to the best of our ability, which we're always trying. Looking at Dana, no hit on her, I can tell you that special ed has hit us hard this year. Transportation is one of those biggies. So we've got a lot of reasons we might be spending more than we had hoped to. Very good for questions, if anyone has any.
I think you fielded mine. Using baseball again.
Appreciate it. You know where I work if you ever have any. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Again, one last overture for questions.
No.
No questions? Mr. Bertram?
All right. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Shiver?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Bertram, for that presentation. Also like to extend our appreciation for keeping us in a position to where we don't have to talk about running levies and things like that in a climate where it would be very arduous to go through that.
I tried not to use that L word.
Yeah, and so it's on my mind. And so I appreciate that you didn't have to use it tonight. I'll use it for you and say thank you for not bringing us there.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is a contract with Frontline Time and Attendance Software System. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Mr. Bertram, could you give us some insight regarding this?
Yeah, actually, the next 2 items both have to do with time and attendance. Frontline is the company that we currently use to record our absences, also known as ASOP in the olden days. Frontline seems to be buying up any company that has anything to do with schools. But we did a lot of research looking at how we manage time and attendance for our hourly staff, our classified staff. And when I came on board here, there was no time and attendance at all being conducted within the district. We just treated everybody as an annual contract, assumed they worked their 37 and a half hours, 40 hours, whatever their contract allowed for, and they got paid. That was one thing that I changed real quick. We went to a timesheet that they had to complete, and they basically go online electronically, start, stop, and fill that out each pay period and submit it. Still not a real accurate depiction. They could sit down all in one day, fill out their timesheet. We don't know it. So what we've been working on, and this probably would have been done 2 years ago, the summer of the pandemic is when we were planning on doing this. And of course, we put it on hold, was to shore up time and attendance, to make people more accountable, more responsible, to get to work on time, to clock in, clock out, and us to be more aware of any overtime that's being paid and so forth. So this is a system, Frontline, that will blend well with the ASOP program that we have now. And it'll be a great way for our managers also to be able to manage their staff. This does have the capability that we could take Tom over maintenance and utilities and custodial, and he can go into the software at any time, see who's clocked in, where they are, and actually be responsible for their staff being fully staffed each and every day. The second item, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and talk about that. Touchpoint Industries partners with Frontline to provide us the hardware that we need to be able to have the employees clock in a physical location. These aren't the old-fashioned time clocks where you pull out a card and you punch them anymore. Those are long gone. Looked at the old biometric system. I say old, it still seems new to me, where employees would use their fingerprint or thumbprint at a machine to clock in and out. Craig Campbell got very involved on this, and he decided what would be best for us and be the most efficient. And this is actually their proximity computers, where so all they'll do is they'll take their ID when they come into work, scan it and go, scan it and go home. So real quick process. They won't have to stand in a line and do it. They'll be able to hit it and go. So as long as they remember their ID, but there are other methods as well that people could physically, once they're in work on that same machine, clock in if they don't have their ID with them. So we think it's going to be a very good system for our staff and for future accountability. Can't say for certain, but we think there's been a lot of times where employees were being paid when they probably shouldn't have been paid. I can't say that it'll pay for this system, but it'll certainly help in the long run by having the accountability for all our staff.
So is this for certified people or no?
No. At this time, teachers are exempt from using this system.
How many classified staff
Yeah.
do we have? How many people?
We are up to 250 once we brought back
Okay.
custodial maintenance and utility. It jumped us up quite a bit.
How many?
250.
And looking at the cost of this system, it'd be about $5 a month per employee. That's about what we're paying.
Other questions regarding? Darn, and then Mr. Bertram.
This is going to be, we've not had this before, right?
We have not, no.
So this is a brand-new line item, and we'll have to absorb it some way.
Yes, yes. Of course, the hardware, that's going to last a long time. We're able to use some of our existing computer systems, Craig being the frugal guy he is. We do have an advantage where in some of our least used locations, we're going to be able to use some old Chromebooks, make those work. But in each of the buildings, this is a lot stronger unit than a typical computer that you deal with on a day-to-day unit. So they'll be able to handle wear and tear. Good
So
question.
this is a 3-year commitment?
Yes, it is.
After 3 years, we'll renegotiate or figure out
Yes.
something else?
Yeah, and I went with the 3 years because there was definitely a break in price going with the 3 years, especially not knowing where the economy was going. Definitely more comfortable with that. Ready?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay. Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
All right, the second item regarding this is the Touchpoint Industries. Is there a motion for approval for the hardware for this?
So moved.
In a second, please.
Second.
Is there any questions? Past the one, I guess we compelled to pass the second.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
I believe that brings us to curriculum. And one item under curriculum is an MOU between us and Miami University regarding the Early College Academy. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second, please.
Second.
Do we need a refresher regarding this?
How does this differ from the system that has been going on? What's different about it?
Well, I wish Mr. Stiles or Ms. Hauser was here.
Yeah.
Dana and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, and Chris may know more than the rest
I
of us.
can speak to it a
because-
little bit more.
Yeah.
I know with this program, there's added benefit for students. There's supports with counseling and tutors. They have a meal plan, which is unique for this. And there's transportation, I think, is the big piece that if I remember Ms. Hauser had alluded to in meeting with her, that those pieces are added to what was a CCP program where young people had to provide their own transportation to and from wherever they went. But the classes, the textbooks, all those are pretty consistent to the old iteration of CCP.
Okay.
I guess the new piece of this too is that students, as they complete this program, and I believe there's 15 from Middletown and 15 from Hamilton that are currently enrolled, they'll have their associate's degree as they finish their high school.
So the person who is like, I forget, was it the counselor coordinator? Somebody who oversees this group of children and kind
Correct.
of keeps track of them, not children, young people. Is this a Miami employee?
Correct.
Will be doing that? Okay.
And there's a physical space in the library, bottom floor, that is dedicated to these students,
Okay.
that they can meet and greet and
Okay.
work on homework, et cetera,
Okay.
on the campus. And the
That's good.
promise is that it helps them transition, because if they need tutoring and study tables,
Right,
et
it
cetera,
sounds-
they'll have those.
Sounds
amenities.
wonderful,
And
really.
I seem to recall that in the previous college programs, the kids were on their own individually. They
Correct.
signed up for the class. In this program, they go through as a cohort
Correct.
and with
That's-
support.
Right, that's,
And it is still part of the CCP program.
Right.
But definitely more defined.
Right.
Yeah, it's like amped up a couple
Amped up,
notches.
I like that.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
No.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
It brings us to district committee reports. I know our superintendent's not here tonight. He typically leads these. Any committees have anything to speak to? And I can give a quick overview of the community center project. We've been meeting. I know the last meeting, which was last week, there was discussions around community sessions, input sessions, of where there will be 4, likely in July, of where in different parts of the community there would be opportunities for the community to articulate what their hopes and desires would be within the context of what's feasible. We were very careful to do a study that organized the feasibility of what's out there. And we have yet to really hear from the county a true number on what they'll be able to help us and bring to the table for this project.
And who will
Who
moderate?
will lead this?
Uh-huh.
Brent Stetter, who is the group that helped us with the
Okay.
feasibility study,
Okay.
are working with us with this. They have
Okay.
some experience on what types of questions, what kinds of pieces of information will be valuable for the committee as we move forward with this. But there's also people within the committee,
Okay.
Ms. Novak being one, and some others that have some expertise and will help with this too.
Okay.
And so, and I know we have the resources within a district, Ms. Beadle, Mr. Stiles, have skill sets that will
Okay.
help with this too.
Okay.
We're looking
Mr.
for a facility.
And Mr. Sotzig.
Yeah, I
Give him-
forgot. Mr. Stotzing
Okay.
will lead this. I know Mr. Hightower, like the moderator, somebody to facilitate the conversation. He had some people within the community that have experience with that will assist too.
Okay, good.
Timeline, in regards, I know this summer is busy. We're going to have to start organizing some plans and what's going to be in the building, because the hope is a year out that we'll be breaking ground and actually moving dirt and
Okay.
building something, so. Other things within this, if there are none, then that would bring us to board reports, unless Mr. Bertram, am I forgetting anything?
Nope.
And Ms. Miller, anything? All right, then that brings us to board reports, and Mr. Moore, anything to report tonight?
No comments this evening.
All right,
No, nothing here.
nothing. Ms. Mulligan, anything to report?
Nothing except thank you to the many people in the community who responded to our tragedy of Larry's passing this 2 weeks ago. I feel a lot of support in this town, so thank you, people.
Thank you for that. And I know as a board and as a district, our heart goes out to you and your family. I know Larry and you are dynamic and are dynamic people, and we're so thankful that you sit at the table with us and help us through a lot of things. And you deserve every bit of support from all the people in the community.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank our coaches and our athletes who, when I'm driving around town, I'll see at the high school people out on the soccer field. I know our soccer coach has been doing all kinds of camps, cross country's out there running streets. Our basketball team's going different places, both men's and women's. There's a lot of activity over the summer, and a lot of people who are giving up a lot of their summertime to prepare. A lot of these things that are in the winter, you prepare now in the summer to be successful, and so it's not unnoticed, and it's appreciated that they're sharing their time. And to our staff that's out west at ISTE, I see on Twitter smiling faces and some good ideas, some people learning and thinking over the summer to prepare for the upcoming year is exciting too.
I'd just like to wish Mr. Stiles a happy birthday, which his birthday was yesterday.
Oh, gosh.
Don't tell anybody he's 42 or something like that. But I know he's enjoying his company and having a good time out there. And Kathy, I'm so happy that you're back. And,
Thank you.
You were missed, and you're a ray of sunshine.
Thank you.
I just want to say we also have a number of staff who are at model schools also gearing up for next school year. So I appreciate all the people who are giving of their time with family to go and learn and get themselves refreshed and renewed for a new school year. And thanks to you all for having me join tonight.
Oh, I might not have Mr. Stiles back. He did such a nice job. It was good time through this.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
yeah, he can take now. No, thank you for joining us tonight. If there's nothing else, is there a motion for adjournment?
So, go ahead.
Second.
We're kind of got to work
Yeah.
on those.
We're
a little
being
bit.
too
We need to
polite to one
practice.
another.
Need to
Well,
practice a little.
We're being polite.
All right.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Hey, have a good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight.